is actually something I learned from Derek Sivers, who you also had on the podcast. Like, he's one of my favorite people in the world. And he recently did an interview with Tim Ferriss that helped me out a lot. And he said, you don't have to do anything. He's like, there are consequences to not doing things, to not paying taxes, but you don't have to do it. And if you apply that to everything that you're doing in your life, it can really help to guide you in the direction that you feel called to, that is going to be most exciting and most fulfilling. And that's not going to feel like you're trapped doing it.
Matt Diavella, welcome to the podcast, man. I'm excited to chat with you. I'd love to start even what you just said before this was you're trying to make it still exciting with work. And I'm curious, how have you been able to almost really keep it fun for you? It's been a few years since you've got started in this space.
Yeah, James, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you. Yeah, like it is an interesting time for me because I think it was always obvious why I did it. And I think like part of it in the very beginning is just like the excitement and the unknown. And, there's so much uncertainty of like, will this work? Won't it work? Are people going to watch my videos? And then people started watching my videos, and that was exciting as well. And, really rewarding because when you put 40, 50, 60 plus hours into a video to only have 100 people watch it, that can be really disappointing and kind of defeating. And so, yeah, I think the momentum took over, and it was just for a very long time. I was loving, making videos and growing a team and doing all the things that most creators and successful creators do. And then I just recently, 7 months ago, had my first kid. And so I think that process, along with some other things, got me to start really thinking about why I'm doing this and also why I'm doing it at an unsustainable level, where, it's to produce at a really high level. It requires a lot of time and a lot of hours. And that sacrifice was an easy decision to make when I didn't have a kid. But now that I've got Frankie, it's I just love spending time with him too, man.
Yeah.
It's boring. And I think a lot of people maybe, especially if you don't have kids, maybe you can't relate, but it's like, I just really genuinely love that time. And it's like, there's nothing that I can do on like YouTube and in that space that kind of fulfills me in the same way. Granted, it's also a nightmare at the same time, like not getting any sleep and like just trying to get by. But like it's just been like this really kind of transition point for me to start to figure out like what I want to do next. Because I think also part of it was just like I was getting bored. Like just do it. Like a lot of times it's like it feels like you're just doing the same video, you're doing the same thing over and over again, and it feels formulaic, and I'm not learning anything new, and I'm not being excited by the content I'm making. And so I think like, yeah, right now is just a transition point for me where I'm like starting to think about all this stuff and figure out what's the next move? What's the next step?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think for me with podcasting, I speak with someone each week, so it's exciting. I have to learn about that person and ask questions based on it. But making a YouTube video and do all the research that you do for that, especially when it's by yourself, I could assume that it gets draining after a while. I know that the editing process has been always fun for you, but being in filmmaking even prior to YouTube and being in the space for a while where you didn't make any money, I'm curious how you were able to step into YouTube and just show up enough times to actually create the platform that you have now.
Yeah, it's a really good question because I just did a video recently where it was like I used a stopwatch and I timed every single task for 30 days. And one of the main thing I wanted to learn was like, how long does it take me to make a video? Like from writing, filming, editing, all that stuff. And then I think from start to finish, the video that I tracked during that video took me 55 hours to make.
Wow.
And somebody replied and was like, this is insane. Like it just, and I was saying like, you kind of have to put in that time even before you get the views, which is I think the hardest thing for any creator to do. And that's the thing that I resisted the most. And so I actually started out doing a podcast. I did a podcast for like a year before I ever started making the kind of YouTube videos that I do today, which are much more like edited, scripted, like a lot of research and time goes into making these. And so, and not to say that doesn't happen with a podcast, but it's just the editing side of a podcast was just a lot easier for me. I would just like cut clips and I could put out like 10 videos or 10 clips a week, but to make one, really edited YouTube video would again take me 1 week. So I'm like, by the numbers, it's like, it seems like the great idea to just like cut up clips and just throw them up. But I think what I learned was that quality is the only way that you're really going to stand out. Quality can mean a lot of things. It's like production value, yeah, but it's also storytelling, and also doing something original and unique that nobody else is doing at that particular time. And so, because like if you think about it, like there are already so many content creators. Like right now, even when I started 7 years ago, it felt like, oh, it's too late. Like, why am I even going to start creating now? Because there's so many people that are doing this.
Yeah.
And now it feels like 100 times that with the amount of creators coming out. And so you will never be able to compete with quantity. Like you just cannot produce enough to break through the noise. I think there's a point where you have to make a lot of stuff to get better. Like you have to produce, like it might be better to produce 50 okay videos than one video that you think is really great, just because you need to like figure out, all right, how do I tell a story from start to finish when I've
Yeah.
never done that before? But if you really want to start breaking through the noise, I just realized, okay, I need to start putting more time and effort into each of these videos, even if nobody's watching. It helped that like maybe it was the second or third video I did after a year of putting out the podcast, connected and did well. And it was called My Minimalist Apartment. That was the first
Hmm.
video I ever did that got 1 million views. First video I did, I think that got 20,000 views. And it was only 3 minutes too. Like it wasn't like in hindsight. I mean, I think it's even today, it's like crazy that to make a 10-minute video, long form content is really challenging, and it's really difficult for creators who don't have a whole lot of experience to kind of dive into that world. Telling a minute story in a YouTube short or Instagram reel is much simpler by comparison. And so even I had a really hard time in the beginning where I'm like, how am I supposed to make a minimalist apartment tour 10 minutes? And I didn't even think about that. I was like, all right, I'm just going to make it 3 minutes and see where that goes. And and I think a part of it was like kind of seeing other people make minimalist apartment videos that
Hmm.
did really well and got 100,000 views or 1 million views, and I was like, I can do that, and maybe I can put my own spin on it. And so that's kind of what started the whole YouTube thing, and like investing more and more of my time into it. It really helps early on to have a win, to say, oh, okay, that's the direction I should go. But I think even now, if I were to give somebody advice today, it's like, you got to put the time into these videos if you want, people to take the time to watch them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I will definitely add on to the doing any kind of video, YouTube video is a lot more difficult than it is to record a podcast, because I even say this podcast started as solo episodes, and it took a
Hmm.
lot more time. Even if they were shorter, it took a lot more time than an hour-long podcast,
Yeah.
because there's just less that goes into it. When
Hmm.
you had your filmmaking business, so you were doing a lot of stuff in that and got to six figures and just expanded that.
Yeah.
Was there any kind of sunken cost fallacy or anything that came in for you to lean into YouTube, or was that just something that you just felt pulled to do and you had to kind of lean into it?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it is a similar point that I'm at now, where it's like
Yeah.
we really become beholden to comfort, and it's very hard, especially at a level where you have like, almost 4 million subscribers on YouTube. And I'm
It's
like,
absurd.
how, imagine like just stopping, just being like, all
Yeah.
right, screw it. I don't want to do this anymore. And like, I think it takes a lot of courage. And I know a lot of people, my friend Thomas Frank, he walked away from his YouTube channel for a year to pursue other projects. And that ended up, getting, I think he started earning like 5 times as much money as he did then.
Mhm.
And was much more importantly, he was enjoying his work as well, because
Yeah.
he was at a point too where he was like, oh, this is just not enjoyable. Like, I'm not as excited about these videos anymore. And so I think as creators, we need to feel that excitement. Yeah, I was doing well as a freelancer. I mean, I started out doing weddings and bar mitzvah videos and working with like local hardware companies, like the
Mhm.
most uninteresting things that you could probably make videos about. And like, but I think that's where I kind of really honed my craft and was like, okay, if I can make this like department store look interesting, then I could make anything look interesting. And then I think it was really making my first documentary, Minimalism,
Of course.
and that doing quite well, and making enough money from that it gave me um, the ability, like it just gave me that runway that I needed to be able to explore something else. And I was getting a little bit burnt out from client work. It was uninteresting to me anymore. I kind of was at a point where I was tired helping other brands and other companies become successful, that I was like, oh, I want to like build something for myself. And I was just such a self-help slash entrepreneurial bookworm. Like I loved like reading Seth Godin and um, all these other books about businesses and entrepreneurs and creators building their own thing. I like followed a lot of bloggers in the early days, and I was like, and then in filming minimalism, I met with a lot of them,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, these are just normal people, like going about their lives, and then they have an audience, and they can kind of create on their own terms. And this is obvious today, right? In 2024, that's everybody like knows that that's a possible job path. But
Yeah.
back then, 2016, 2017, it just wasn't as common. Not as many people were doing it. So I was like, all right, let me just give it a try. It helped as well. Like that runway helped. Having a partner who was earning an income certainly helped. That's not to say you need those things to get started, although I definitely recommend people have like a runway, like having
Mhm.
some money that you can make it maybe 3 to 6 months, so you can start to explore that. Because it if you're really just getting started from scratch and you don't have a whole lot going for you at this particular time, like it'll take years probably before you're able to like go full time with it. And so, yeah, I was just ready to go. And then, it was like a year to a year and a half of just making videos, making the podcast, and trying to make this thing work. And it wasn't working. And I was burning through my savings very quickly. And so I was like, this is going to have to work pretty soon, or I'm going to have to start like picking up a freelance project here or there, which would have been totally fine. But luckily enough, things started to turn around and I was able to start to make money from YouTube.
The minimalist apartment happened. I think it was like a year and 2 months
Yeah.
after, like you said. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's awesome to hear that you've still been able to keep it exciting in some way. Because when I know that for the hardware, there was a moment when you were at the gym on a treadmill, and it was like the I made it moment when you seen the hardware commercial
Yep.
that you made, right? I'm curious in that early time, because I know, and I want to talk about the books that you've read too, because I know you were reading like a book a week when you were living in your parents'
Yeah.
basement at the time. What did that instill in you when you seen it on like the I made it moment when you're walking on the treadmill and you see the hardware commercial? Did that make you think bigger at the time? Were you conscious of kind of the impact that would have on you, or how did that make you change the way that you see in your future, if that makes sense?
Yeah, honestly, I think that was certainly a big moment in my freelance career that I was just like, this is crazy. And like, it was a regional commercial too. So it wasn't like it was a Super Bowl ad or something, but it was
Yeah.
still like, I was looking around the gym, like, "Do you guys see this?" Like, I shot that, I edited that. And so that really felt special. I think even before that, probably an even bigger moment for me happened early on where I made a parody rap video
Yes. Got sued, right?
about, yes, and I got sued
Yeah, yeah.
for $7 million. My brother and I got sued, and we were just in college. We made a parody rap video at this grocery store that we had worked at the time, like through high school and a little bit into college, until we were fired and sued. And that was like such early days, like of YouTube. It was, I think, 2007. YouTube came out in
Wow.
2005, 2006, or something like that. Actually, sorry, I think it was 2010. It was around there. Yeah. Either way, it was such early days of YouTube that like parody rap videos were like going viral at the time. And so I was like, all right, I can do this. Like, and that's what my brother and I would do. We would just like make dumb raps while we were like stacking the shelves at this grocery store. And we got sued. And then it ended up becoming this like viral story where like we were on CNN national news, and we got limo service to New York to do that interview, and it was
Mhm.
this kind of like blip. And then like people started to recognize me on campus, like, hey, you're the produce guy. And so like, yeah, that I was like, whoa, like this is crazy that you can kind of get this much attention, and from a video. Now, granted, that video at the time, I felt like this is the most viral thing that's ever been done. This is insane. And it was 120,000 views, I think we got at the end. And then it just tapered off. And then it got no more views after that. I think it's because it was a terrible video, and I'm a terrible rapper. So that certainly didn't help. But it was, yeah, it's like those times when you like just connect with somebody, even one person outside of yourself. I think I used to be very insecure about like sharing my work, because
Yeah.
you share an early video with your parents or a friend, and then they're like, that's dumb, like I don't really get it, that's not funny, like why are you doing this? So like
Mhm.
getting those kind of gutted feelings where you're kind of sitting over somebody's shoulder, like watching them watch your video, and then there's no reaction, to all of a sudden getting 100,000 people watch and be interested in something that you made. I think gave me that encouragement and that kind of reward of the excitement of it all that kind of pushed me to keep going.
Yeah, because I know you graduated college, $97,000 in student
Mhm.
debt, and then you decided to get a brand new car, which makes a lot of sense. And then you're living in your
Yeah.
parents' basement, and it's like you have, of course, you're going to compare yourself of where you think you're supposed to be and everything else that
Yeah.
comes into it. And something like that happens. I know that self doubt was a big thing. I think there was a video
Mhm.
that you posted about how self doubt you it caused a lot of anguish and a lot of anxiety for your future during those early days. What were some of the things that help you kind of get out of that feeling of, I don't know if it's being in a rut or if that's how you want to phrase it, but just getting out of that phase of life?
Yeah, and I think the first thing I'd say is that it's like it's totally normal to like be
Yes.
in a rut and to experience that. And if you don't, you're probably a sociopath or deluded. Like it's okay to have experienced doubt. And again, a lot of this stuff and I think what's great about this conversation is a lot of the stuff's coming full circle for me. So it's like, I'm in that place now too, where I'm like not feeling motivated and not feeling like I'm like having a lot of self-doubt about like why am I doing this, like
Mm.
why do I have to keep going, why do I have to keep making videos, in a very similar way. I had that in the beginning, and I think a big thing is just letting yourself feel that and kind of pushing through. I think getting your ass in the chair, just sitting down and working as hard as it can be, even if you can get like an hour of work done a day or 2 hours of work. I find that it helps to start to build the momentum, and so
Yeah.
it's like I know that there are moments when I'm gonna doubt myself and, whether I'm good enough or I'm making something that's even interesting, or original. And the time when I have the least amount of doubt is when I'm sitting down and I'm editing and I'm like working through a story and I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm actually not doing this for anybody else but myself. Like I'm not doing this because I want it to be seen by people or I want people to think I'm clever. I'm doing it because I genuinely love this process of exploring a story and trying to figure out what makes it interesting and what ties everything together. And so I think that the more that I can just focus on the work every day, as simple as that is, the closer I can get to kind of overcoming that doubt. I think the more that I step away from my work, the more that it starts to creep in, the more that, and that's probably even the reason why I'm having it now, where I'm like, I'm spending a lot of time with my son, which is amazing. But then I'm also having that hard time finding balance between, okay, how do I actually like work and find motivation and get into a rhythm with my work when I have a son. I think that's something I've always struggled with. And I know a lot of other creators do as well, where it's
Yeah.
like, how do you have work-life balance when you're like just like trying to put as much as you can into making something happen?
Yeah, the process of being a creator, especially when there's always more that you can create. I know that's why, like,
Yeah.
when you took on a lot of employees and contractors, it was because you wanted to create more, right? Like that
Yeah.
you thought that would release into more output. And Ali Abdal was in the same way, where he just took on too much, and that was the path that it made sense for him. But it
Yeah.
makes sense that you're more of like a lifestyle business where you want to be able to enjoy it, spend time with your son now that you have one, and be able to still enjoy what you do and make it more exciting throughout that
Yeah.
time. I know Tom Shadyac was someone that really
Yeah.
had a big impact on you when it came to minimalism and changed the way that you've seen success, especially in those early days. Now, what kind of impact did he have on you, and how did that kind of change the trajectory of even you stepping into YouTube and that whole journey in itself?
Yeah, that's a name I haven't heard in a while. But he was definitely the person that kind of led me down this rabbit hole of living more intentionally and
Mm.
not just pursuing something because it's gonna, make me appear successful to other people or make me feel successful myself.
Mm.
He did an interview with Carson Daly. My goodness, like this was so long ago. This was when I was living in my parents' basement. I was like $100,000 in student debt, and I was like, oh my god, like just watching TV at like 1 a.m. Last Call with Carson Daly comes on, and he's just talking about living a simple life. He's like simplicity, simplicity, simplicity. That is the key to happiness. He gave up everything. So he was like this massive Hollywood director who did all these amazing movies with Jim Carrey, all the movies that, like Bruce Almighty, the movies that we've grown to love as kids. And so, like, I was like, and then he basically moved into this, I think it was like a 10,000 square foot mansion. And he looked around, he's like, this is not making me happy. Like, I don't want this. I don't want, all of these trappings of success. And so then he moved into a trailer park in Malibu. And I was like, what? I remember like hearing that and being like, I need to tell everybody I know about this because that is crazy. Like, it's like, you take it for granted now. Like everybody knows about minimalism and simple living. But at the time, I was like, wait a minute, you can intentionally scale back and live a simple life. And that idea was so appealing to me. It was almost like I don't have to chase for anything now. I don't have to prove to anyone or myself that I'm successful. Like if this guy can literally reach the top of filmmaking in Hollywood and realize, oh, that doesn't make a difference in terms of his happiness, then maybe I can find that out a lot sooner as well. And I think that was really like a radical shift for me as I went forward. And like, I still like went on and I still wanted to be challenged. I still wanted to grow. I still, built a YouTube channel and then grew a team. But it was, for me, I never did it because I was trying to prove to anyone or myself I was successful. I never did it for money. I did it because I thought it was a great challenge, because I thought it was going to be fun and exciting. Eventually, some of those things didn't pan out and they weren't as exciting as like the initial rush of dopamine you get of like hiring somebody and building a team. But it definitely like set me on this path where I started to like really get more interested in self-development, in personal finances, and living a simple life. And those are things that certainly have changed my life to this day.
Yeah. Now with your son, and as you said, you're
Yeah.
trying to make it more exciting. You're at this like phase of, you're almost at 4 million YouTube subscribers, which is just absurd. And congratulations on all the success. It really is.
Thanks, man.
It makes a lot of sense, right? The storytelling ability, the editing, everything that you put into the work. I mean, it's hard not to watch your videos almost. And I think, or I'm curious, how has your relationship with work changed now? And do you think that there's something that you're still trying to prove to yourself, or how has that relationship shifted?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think you're always trying to prove something to yourself that like you still got it,
Yeah.
that you can still like pump out like interesting videos. And I think that's certainly an element to it. I think more so now it's like I'm motivated by like finding balance.
Mm,
I think one like silver lining over the past year or so is that like I really haven't experienced much burnout or anxiety. Like I'm somebody who has experienced quite a bit of anxiety in my life, especially once my YouTube channel started growing. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety, and I had a lot of physical symptoms, from vertigo to feeling like my apartment was trying to kill me. And so like I went through some really difficult times with anxiety and like burnout and overwhelm and feeling like I'm trying to do too much. But like over the past year, specifically over the past 6 months, even though I've gotten virtually no sleep with my son, I haven't been burnt out in that way creatively. Like I haven't worked 16-hour days like
mm,
nonstop, just because I have these like boundaries now where I'm like my wife Natalie, she needs my help. I'm not going to be working weekends because that wouldn't be fair on her. It's like
mhm.
I have to be much more intentional with how I use my time. I'm not creating as much, but that's fine. Like I'm at a place now where, and you said it yourself, where it's like there's always more content that can be
Yeah.
created. Like, wouldn't it be great if we could make 4 amazing videos every week, or if
Yeah.
we could, do 20 podcasts a month? But at the end of the day, it's like that's not possible without sacrificing your sanity, without sacrificing your mental health and your physical health. And so, yeah, I have really, I think, been in a great place with my mental health over the past year. And I think that's a testament to setting those boundaries and working much less. There's trade-offs to that. Like you're making less content, you're making less money. You don't have that kind of exciting, explosive growth that I think helps to build momentum in the very beginning. But I'm happier now. And so, yeah, I think it's certainly something that I'm proud of over the past year. And now as I'm starting to we're getting settled in and learning how to be parents and do 2 things at the same time, I'm starting to work a little bit more, but also still trying to find and make sure that I can achieve that mythical balance.
Yeah, there's never really a balance, right? Like harmony is like something where
Yeah.
I try to shoot for because I mean, even doing 2 interviews a week, I'm kind of like, all right, maybe I should go back to 1 interview a week because I want
Yeah.
to still show up 100% that I can and be able to make this last long term. I feel for YouTube, and I assume that you relate with this, is that you feel like you can never kind of take a step back because, like you said, the momentum, the growth that you've showed up for, the people like expect a video, that kind of thing for people
Hmm.
that maybe aren't in a place where they're just having a child, so they're forced to take a step back. How do you almost, I don't want to say set boundaries, but change your relationship with that so you're not working the 16-hour days to get burnt out? Because that's surprising that you haven't been able to get burnt out.
Um, yeah, so I think it's like, I mean, I think you have to really just focus on what's most important. And like for me, that's like it was much easier to like spend time working and getting those 16 hours
Yeah.
before Frankie came. But even if you don't have a child, you can still kind of set some boundaries, and you can
Mhm.
still do your best to like make sure that you're not going kind of overboard with it. But I think also, again, it's this thing where it's like it's okay if you do, you know. 'Cause I did it for years, and it wasn't always like burning out every single week, but it was doing it regularly enough that like it made work not enjoyable. Having some non-negotiables, I think, really helps. So whether you're like that's going to the gym, going for a run, going for a walk, like something for yourself, you should always have time to be able to do those things. And I can say that even now with a kid, where it's like sometimes it feels like you don't have time to do anything else. But 5 minutes to walk around the block to get some fresh air, bare minimum. I think in setting like that minimum dose of the habit to make sure that you're doing something for yourself, I think has been hugely helpful for me over the past few years. And again, it's one of those things where it's like it's really it's often not as bad as it sounds. Like when you're saying, yeah, like I burnt out a lot over the past like 5 to 7 years doing YouTube, and like it was very stressful at times, and there was a lot of pressure, but there was like so many good times as well. And and still continues to be very exciting, and there's a lot of really interesting problems that you can sink your teeth into. And so I think it's just like being okay that things aren't always going to feel perfect, and things aren't always going to be perfectly balanced.
Yeah. I'm I'm always curious for people because you've been in not just content creation on YouTube, but just overall making content in some way or
Hmm.
editing content or filming, all of that kind of stuff. What has content creation taught you about yourself?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's like, I think if you're a content creator or you're just a creator in general, because like almost like content creator becomes like a bad word these days, because
Yeah, it
it's
does.
like it's like, ew, you're a content creator. Oh, like I mean, and a lot of times it's like synonymous with being an influencer.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's like you definitely learn a lot about yourself being a creator or an artist of any kind.
Mhm.
Um, I think I get much more clear about my own thoughts in a similar way that journaling does that for some people. When I make videos on YouTube, and specifically when I'm making videos that's about something that I'm going through in the moment, I find that it really helps me process what I'm going through. It's a very cathartic thing for me. I just did a video recently, like talking about scaling back after growing a team of 10, going down to now a team of one. And I don't love getting like super personal, on my channel. Like I do, and I talk about my anxiety and stuff. And I think I do it a lot of times selfishly because I'm like, I actually need this to know, like, again, it's like a journaling process for me where I'm like, how can I make sense of this in a video? How can I tell this story? And then to release it almost is like, it's like when somebody writes a journal entry and then they burn the pages or they throw the book into the
Yep.
fire. It's like, boom, it's out there. Okay, I can let go of that now, and I can kind of move on to the next thing. And so I think that's been the most powerful thing for me as a content creator. It definitely it continues to tell me things about myself that maybe I have been hiding or hadn't quite recognized in the moment yet.
Yeah, this podcast started as a solo, just doing solo episodes, and that's exactly how I felt. It was like almost like a public journal of some sort.
Yeah.
I find a lot of authors write their book almost for themselves first. They're still going through the
Hmm.
challenges that they're going through, but they write the book for someone because they've learned so much through going through those problems. You did
Hmm.
an entire year of habits and did a bunch of different ones. I followed that
Yeah.
entire journey. What are some that stuck with you, or what were some things that were surprising to you throughout that whole year, which must have been a tough year, I would say.
Yeah. I don't think I'm doing any of those habits anymore, which I think is something that like needs to be said because a lot of
Yeah.
people put a lot of pressure on themselves that they need to be doing all these things. That said, I'm so glad that I did it. It was really fun. So I did. I think it was 12 habits over 12 months.
Mhm.
There was a 1 month where I did a couple habits at the same time, but yeah, it was like taking cold showers, quitting social media, doing breath work, meditating, journaling, all these things in like the self-development world that are seen as like, everybody's always talking about them and it almost becomes cliche to a point where you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I get it. Like ice baths are good for you. Um, but I think it like really was just about like trying something new and like allowing yourself to pursue and try something new, even if you don't plan on sticking with that habit forever. Um, it allows you to be okay with trying things and having them not work out or failing. I think a lot of people have a fear of starting because they are afraid that they're going to fail, afraid that it won't
Mhm.
stick in the long run, or that they'll let themselves down, or you know, maybe not hitting that New Year's resolution will reinforce this idea that they're not worthy enough and not good enough to live the life that they imagine they can. And so I think that was like probably the biggest learning from it. Um, and I think it also taught me that like, yeah, you don't need those 12 habits. You don't need these 20 habits. Sometimes you just need like one or two. For me, exercising and eating healthy are like bar none, the
Yeah.
most important habits that I've developed for myself, for my mental health, my physical health, for my energy levels, And so I think like that, and I would say sleep, you could say on top of that. That's again something that I've been acutely aware of over the past 6 months. But yeah, I'm like, those are like the basics. And I think those for me are important, but I think also for most people, I think obviously when it comes to your health, exercise and eating well, those like it's obvious it may be oversimplifying things just a little bit, but at the end of the day, if you want to like feel good and if you want to focus on two habits that are going to give you the most bang for your buck, I think that's where it is versus like the meditating, the journaling, the cold showers, all that stuff. It's like that's just kind of noise until you get those first two down.
Yeah, I believe in it. I think that's why they did so well throughout that year is because so many people feel like this is going to be the solution to everything once I do this
Yeah.
habit, whatever habit that is. And I think there's also the curiosity in it of like, what did you gain from it? The flexibility, one, the cold showers, all the things that you've done. Knowing that you're not doing any of them now, I think will give a lot of people um,
Mhm.
some kind of empathy for themselves to recognize that there doesn't have to be so many things going on in your life because
Yeah.
most of the time, especially when you're doing something like that, it usually isn't sustainable to begin with. Um,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think yeah, like again, I'm coming back to this because this is just my experience now. But as a parent, it's like you have this major responsibility that's a 24/7 thing.
mhm.
And it's certainly a two-person job. And you just have to like let go of things. Like literally for the past 6 months, I have eaten nothing but processed food.
Really?
Like, yeah, like packaged food, like like every day, like 3 times a day. I'm like ripping open these packages, and it's like we've got a meal prep service, and it's some of them are better than others, and I think I'm probably going to do a video exploring processed food in general because it's like people demonize it so much, but like it's I haven't been like eating organic home cooked meals every day because I'm like I don't have time for that. Like I'm like screw it, and I probably could look back at like old videos I've made and things I've said where I'm like you need to set this as like a necessity. Like you need to be eating organic whole foods every day. But I'm like, no, like this right now, this point in my life, I'm just trying to survive. I'm just trying to get by. And like 3 times a day, if that's what I have to do to like eat all the to get everything I need, like and to get the caloric intake I need every day, that's totally fine. And again, there's better versions of that. There are some like more like I guess like healthier meal processed options. But at the end of the day, it's like all produced in a factory, and like, they put additives and stuff in these meals. So I'm not going to continue to do that forever, but I think it's like, yeah, that's just you have to figure out like what's most important in this moment for me to focus on, and then be willing to just drop other things that aren't working out and that you don't have the time for, knowing that you'll come back to them later. And I definitely used to do this before, but on a smaller scale, where it's like, okay, I'm really busy with work right now, so I'm not going to be, weightlifting for the
Mhm.
next 6 weeks. But now it's like 10 habits at once. I'm like, all right, forget those. Like, I'm going to get back to this soon. But like right now, I'm just trying to like focus on Frankie, my relationship with my wife, and, doing one video per month. And then everything else I can worry about in the future.
This podcast is kindly brought to you by Magic Mind. Now, if you're anything like me, you love coffee, but you hate the jitters that it gives you in that 2 p.m. slump in the afternoon when you still have a lot of day left, but you're not able to be focused throughout that time. And this is why I love Magic Mind. I've been taking it with my morning coffee. It's a small productivity shot that I absolutely love. It's with matcha, which takes longer to release in your body. So instead of feeling slumped at 2 p.m., you actually have that intentional focus and it reduces stress. So I take it with my morning coffee. It helps me drink less coffee, but actually feel focused and not wired throughout the day, which is so impactful because if you're a podcaster or you're taking calls or you're just in general, you need to be focused and have that mental energy. It's been something that's really helpful for me. I've been using it for a few weeks and I guarantee that you will like it. So if you're anything like me and you want to feel focused but not wired, you can go to magicmind.com/youcan2 for 56% off. Yes, 56% off your first subscription. And for your first one-time payment, you can get 20% off, which is insane to say the least because they have a 100% money back guarantee with no questions asked. And instead of waiting 3 to 5 days for that money back, they'll refund you in 3 to 4 hours because they believe in it. And I believe in it so much. So that's magicmind.com/youcan2 for up to 56% off your first subscription. And if you already use Magic Mind, you can get a discount off your next subscription payment as well. So it's magicmind.com/youcan2. Try it for a few weeks, see if you like it. I bet you that you will, and you will feel a lot more intentional with your day instead of just so wired and really just exhausted by the end of the day. Back to the episode. Yeah, we go through seasons of things, and I think we place a lot of pressure on ourselves to uphold the standards. Like even with this podcast, like I said, I'm doing 2 interviews a week, and I'm like
Mhm.
thinking of stepping it down to 1, but I'm like I set the standard for 2, now I have to hold the standard for 2, and we go through that, and I'm curious, how has your I want to say your relationship with yourself shifted because doing that, I know during the year of habits, there was a lot of pressure that you placed on yourself. I mean, you're making a YouTube video about it, so there's the
Mhm.
social pressure on top of that. How
Yeah.
has your relationship shifted?
I think that was actually like probably a really big motivating factor for me to keep going with it, was because it was so public, and that
Yeah.
definitely gave me a lot of accountability. Um, but I really like what you said just about like you questioning whether you should keep up with 2 episodes per week. Same thing with me with my podcast. Like my podcast, after a year and a half, I think I had 1 million downloads. Like it was doing really well, but like it wasn't making me any money at the time. And I was like, this is just like, it's taking a lot of energy. And I'm like, I also don't know if I love it anymore. It almost feels
Mhm.
like something that I have to do versus something I want to do. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to take a break. I'm just going to actually pause this for a little while. But it felt like the hardest thing to do. I felt like I had to live in either New York or LA for the rest of my life because I was doing a podcast and I was doing all the interviews in person. And I was like, there's no way I can live anywhere else because this is where all this creative talent is.
Mhm.
And sure, I'm sure there's great people to interview in Sydney or Berlin or, London. But for me, I was like, oh, I felt like I just had to be in these places. And so I had to question my assumptions like really hard about like the fact that I needed to live in these places, or I needed to do this podcast in person, or I needed to do a podcast at all. And so I think questioning your assumptions and the things that you come to take for granted as like, I have to do this. It's really healthy to just kind of run through that creative mental exercise, every year if you can, where it's like, do I really need to do 2 every week, or can I take a break and maybe just pause for a little bit? And then sometimes you take a break and then it becomes a forever break. And you're like, oh, okay, I guess I didn't truly love this. I'm not saying that's true for you, but I know that that has happened to me in certain areas. And I think allowing myself to really question whether I should keep going down this path and giving myself a little bit of a break from it helps me to kind of like figure out my direction and really where I want to spend my time and energy going forward.
Yeah. As we spoke about really throughout this entire podcast, taking a break or allowing yourself to take a step back when you're
Mhm.
doing a creative field is probably one of the hardest things that you can do. I find,
Mhm.
and especially for someone that I assume for you, when you find the rise of, not for about a year and 2 months, you're not making any money, you're not making any progress when it comes to YouTube, and then out of nowhere it starts shooting up and up and up, and probably really hasn't stopped since then. It's hard to take a
Yeah.
step back, and I assume obviously with your son now, you're forced to take a step back and almost realize the priorities. Has your relationship with work has shifted over this time? But
Yeah.
how do you help someone that maybe is on the rise up? Because I've seen a few creators that I actually tune into. Thomas Frank, even one of them, where
Yeah.
their page is growing and then they stop when their page is at the top, and it seems
Yeah.
like a lot of people just aren't able to do that.
I think one thing, like specifically for YouTubers, and I think it probably transcends all of social media as well.
Yeah.
So like content creators online, um, the algorithm, like you don't have to keep up with the algorithm. A
Mm,
lot of people feel like I have to make one video a week because that's what the algorithm wants me to do, but that's just not true. And I learned this myself where I was at a place where I was like, just really being like, I want to make a video a week. And then again, I questioned my assumptions. I was like, why do I want to make a video a week? Because some of my friends are making a video a week. Some other creators that are really great are making a video a week. And then I was like, all right, do I really need to? Do other creators make a video a week? So I just put together a list of 50 creators that I admire, that I respect, as well as some of the biggest creators on YouTube. And I was like, oh, wow, there is a whole range of quantity that creators produce every year. At the top, you've got like people like Mr. Beast and Mark Rober who are
mm,
making 10 to 15 videos per year. Um, and this was like the year that I
of
did
course.
the tally. So obviously it could be more now. But like just you'd be surprised. Those are the biggest creators on the platform, and they're making some of the least amount of videos out of anybody. And then there was a whole range of people that are making 20 to 30 videos. And that was like kind of the average was like around 20 to 30 videos per year. And then there were creators down, or sorry, like I guess up at the top that were creating the most amount of videos. People like Ali Abdaal, Peter McKinnon, Marquez Brownlee, who were probably doing like 60 to 70 videos per year, which is insane. That's so many videos. And like, it's just, I mean, it's respect to them for being able to produce such high quality and quantity at the same time. But then that got me to start to rethink my assumptions and be like, okay, well, I don't need to make 50, 60 videos per year. And if I'm not enjoying the process and I'm not liking the videos and the things I'm putting out there, like I definitely shouldn't be doing that. I was like, oh, it kind of gave me a little bit of a nudge to be like, oh, I can focus on less videos, focus on making better videos, and focus on not just putting out a filler video just because I need to fill this arbitrary cadence or
Mm,
arbitrary feed. And so I'm at a point now where I'm like, I'm only going to put out a video if it's something that I really want to make a video about, and that I've really put time and energy into making it the best video I can possibly make it. Like if I'm really enjoying the process, then those are the videos that I'm focusing on right now. And so that means naturally I'm making a lot less. And so my bare minimum is one video per month. Um, and I haven't seen like a difference in terms of views based on polling back. I think naturally my videos have started to get less views. Like I think I had a heyday 2018, 2019 where like I mean I had like there was crazy it was a couple months there where I was like every video I was putting out was getting like 1 million views, which is
yeah.
just like insane. Um but since then, my videos go out, I don't know, 400,000 views average, I guess. Obviously some higher, some lower, but I mean, that's like ridiculous. Still like a ridiculous amount of people.
Yes.
And it's like way
Yes.
more than you would ever need. And so it's like just as a creator, just being like, especially like somebody who has had success, like you're saying, somebody who's like had that rise, just know that you have enough. And especially if you don't build a team and you don't have all this payroll and this overhead to pay every single month, then you're going to be in a place where you can just create the videos you want to create instead of feeling like you have to do it just to pay salaries or to fill a feed arbitrarily.
Yeah, that acting out of scarcity because you feel like you have to, or you have
Mhm.
employees, so you're forced to. The creativity has to be up to a halt of some sort. And I know
Yeah.
it's funny that you say that, right? Like 400,000 is like the average now, and there was a point in time where it was higher. But your success goal was 15,000 subscribers. So even
Yeah.
thinking of 400,000 views, like of a video, not even
Yeah.
just subscribers, it's mind-boggling to think how much we changed throughout our time and how what we think is possible, even, which is insane.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was my goal from the very beginning. I was like, if I can get 15,000 subscribers, then I would have made it. Like, because that's just an insane amount of people when you think about 15,000 people, like in a stadium or whatever. So
Yeah.
for any creators who are getting like even 10,000 views per video, that's unbelievable. And that's enough. That's enough to make a full-time living. Like, it's not going to be as easy, obviously, if you're getting hundreds of thousands of views. But like it's I think that's the big thing that everybody needs to figure out for themselves, is like, how much is enough, like how much do I really need to be happy and to pay the bills.
Yeah. You say that with like you can make a living off of 10,000, right? And I know when you
Mhm.
were before you even started YouTube, you had your business that was you were always business first. It seems like you've always been
Mm.
able to create business. What do you feel has helped you, or for someone that just is getting started, wants to get on YouTube or whatever it is, build a business? What do you feel has helped you really create business and have success in it so well?
Yeah, and I think like specifically being a solopreneur, I think I've learned over the past couple of years that I'm not the best entrepreneur. Like if I'm like being like self-aware, and I think it comes down to like just not really enjoying it that much, and also like, yeah, just not finding the excitement from like scaling and growing a team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I genuinely don't think it's one of my strong suits. But when it comes to being a solopreneur and like really being interested in the business side of things, I think that helped me hugely. Because when I was starting out and in my freelance career, there were a lot of people who were like much more talented than me creatively, cinematically. They made better videos than me, but I was able to somehow turn my filmmaking, into a business. And that's because there's so much more than just, taking a beautiful photo or shooting a beautiful video that's going to set you apart. Now, obviously, Seth Godin's Purple Cow, there is a huge element to that where if you make amazing work, people will come and people
Yeah.
will flock to you. But at the end of the day, I think like having some business sense, having an idea of like how to manage clients, how to speak with clients, how to pitch a project, how to increase your rates over time, all of those things were always very interesting to me. And so like I always, dug into books like Ramit Sethi's I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Like that book was hugely helpful to me when I was getting started out, which was also cool when I interviewed him for the first
Yeah.
time in probably 2018. It's just, and like that's one of the coolest experiences about building an audience, where you're like, and like you've gotten to interview some amazing people like Seth Godin,
Yeah.
and it's like it's just so cool. You're like, oh my god, like I like your books really helped me out a lot, and now here I am getting to have a conversation with you. Like that's gotta be the coolest part of, I think, this business that we're in.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that. Speaking with
Yeah,
Seth Godin, speaking with you, even like I told you before this, I've been watching your YouTube videos for years. So to speak with you is almost the same thing as speaking with Seth Godin, which is really cool.
thanks, man.
And like there was a point in time, and I'm curious. Speaking about Seth Godin and Ramit Sethi, is
Mhm.
there was a period of time when you were in your parents' basement and you read a book a week for about a year. What were some of the books that stuck with you? And I know Flinch and a couple others stuck with you, but what were some that stuck with you that you think of to this day?
Yeah, Flinch was a really good one. That was the one by Julian Smith, who I think he sent me a copy of it, but he just started making physical copies. That was like, at
Oh
first it was
wow.
just like an ebook, which is cool. But it was in the book, he like challenged you to take a cold shower just to embrace the flinch. And I was like,
Mhm.
I'm going to do it. And you know what I mean? When you're in your parents' basement, you're like like I think that to me was just a sign of me being like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to like make it. And it sounds stupid, right? You're like, okay, cold shower, cool. Like, yeah, you could really do what it takes. But it's like, I think those times when you can overcome that voice in your head, that voice of self-doubt to push through,
Mhm.
is hugely, I think, like it's you're voting for yourself and you're giving yourself more confidence. The Art of Nonconformity by Chris Guillebeau, I think that was an ebook. I don't even think that's actually a published book. But
Mm.
I had followed his blog and he put out this book. And again, this was at a very different time of the internet when like nobody was doing this kind of thing. And so I was like, wow. And like I think he like talked about his salary or what he made in a year doing blogging. He's like, and I made $45,000 that year. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh my God, if I could make $45,000 a year, like that's all I'd ever need. And so like I think it was like cool just to see that this is somebody who never had a full-time job. And I never ended up having a full-time job either. But I think it gave me that confidence in saying, oh, if he can do it, then I can do it. The Art of Possibility by Ben and Roz Zander. That is one book that is in publication that people can buy at bookstores. That one was, just really, I remember crying while reading the book just because it like really moved me so much, and it just got me to think about my life in a different way, and just to be open to possibility and to what might happen. Again, it's like these books that help you to process and overcome doubt, and push forward. I think yeah, there's so many great books that I read, and I think like even just that habit of reading, and like being inspired by these other people who had kind of gone through it before, was so helpful, because I didn't really have a lot of mentors. I didn't really know people at the time that were doing what I wanted to do. And so they say, surround yourself with 5 people who, you want to be like. And so that was what I did with books, was just, reading as much as I possibly could and trying to implement the things that I was learning, as much as I could as well.
Yeah, I haven't heard of those, and
Yeah.
it's so true. I mean, this is why I do the podcast, right? I want to speak with those people. How can I provide a way to speak with those people? And now I'm doing the exact same thing. The
Yeah.
mentorship is really cool, and just being able to see it is really big, because for a lot of people they don't believe it's possible, and so if there's a belief that it's not possible, the behavior is going to reflect that, and that's a lot of what this podcast is about, is helping people
Yeah.
really just reframe what is possible by those that maybe the ground up, right? Like your
Yeah.
podcast is for that same reason, right? So it's really impactful to think of that. For you with business, as we spoke about, you've been very business minded. You've been able to create a lot. For people that maybe want to start in YouTube or start getting on content, is there a character trait, or is there a skill set, or is there something that you found about yourself that has allowed you to succeed, or what do you think sets you apart?
Yeah. Another great question. I think it's about focusing on your strengths. So, I look at somebody like Ali Abdal, who his strengths are like, he's so smart. You could sit in front of a camera and he could talk for an hour. I'm always amazed when I'm like, how do you make a 45-minute video, dude? Like, I mean, to me, I would like, that's just not my skill set. That's not my strength. I can't sit in front of a camera and just talk, and then even editing it down, and
Hmm.
being as graceful as possible with the edit, I still don't think it would be an interesting video. He doesn't script his videos at all. He puts together a bullet point list and, just shoots his videos, because he's focusing on his strengths. Now, if he were to script out his videos and like put together a shot list and film, a video like every day for a week, and, get all this interesting B-roll and A-roll and all this stuff to make it really interesting video, then it wouldn't really be playing to his strengths that well. You look at somebody like Peter McKinnon, who inspired me a ton when I was starting my YouTube channel. He's, again, really great at just like vlogging, turning the camera on himself, and like his personality is infectious, and he can just shoot and create an amazing video. Now, obviously, like there's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes in terms of the planning and whatnot that we don't see, but I think those are 2 people that do a very good job of just kind of turning the camera on and going for it. It's not me. Like, I need to plan out what I'm going to say. I need to know, like, because to me, that's like, imagine like an author that just like freestyled a book. Like, that's just like, all right, I'm just going to start typing, and then that's going to be the book. Like, to me, that's insane. Even if you do edit it a little bit, which obviously like all like the best YouTubers do. But I'm like, even then, it still wouldn't be great. Like, I need to rewrite to find, what do I really believe in? What do I want to say? Because sometimes I'll like say shit, like even in an interview where I'm like, I didn't even like that. Like, I didn't even mean that. Like, why did I say those words? And so I find that playing to my strengths, which are, one, like writing and writing and rewriting to like find out really what I want to say. And also like kind of doing it in a way that feels like original and unique to my own voice. And then editing, which is for sure is like, I think one of my unique strengths that I've put the most time into. And again, the area that I love the most. And so for me, it's spending more time in the edit than anywhere else. It's not outsourcing my editing. And I think for any creator that's just starting out, it's like, you do have strengths and you do have areas where you love the process so much more. And so focus on those as much as you can, because those are going to be the gifts that allow you to maybe separate yourself and create something new and original that fulfills you.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, your YouTube videos are a lot different than Ali Abdaal, right? Like you're telling a
Mhm.
story in such a way
Yeah.
that I don't think he or Peter McKinnon would be able to reflect that. And again, it goes back to the strengths aspect of things. Matt, I really appreciate your time. There's one last question I ask every guest. My question
Yeah.
to you is, what belief are you currently unlearning?
Oh, what belief am I currently unlearning? I think that that I
Mm,
have to keep doing it, that I have to keep going. Um, I think there's a powerful reframing from I have to do this to I get to do this. And you don't even have to get to do it. Like I don't even, you know what I mean? When it comes to like
yeah.
YouTube, it's like I've been doing it for so long and it's like um I'm getting to a place now where I'm excited about what's to come. And I don't think I'm gonna be quitting YouTube at anytime soon, but I might. And like I could in a year's time, I could be like, that's it. That's the last video I ever make. And I would be totally fine to do that. And I could maybe start freelancing again or doing something like completely different, become a barista. I don't know. But it's like you don't have I mean, this is actually something I learned from Derek Sivers, who you also had on the
Yeah.
podcast. Like he's one of my favorite people in the world.
Me too.
And he recently did a interview with Tim Ferriss that helped me out a lot. And he said, you don't have to do anything. He's
Mhm.
like, there are consequences to not doing things, to not paying taxes, but you don't have to do it. And if you apply that to everything that you're doing in your life, it can really help to guide you in the direction that you feel called to. That is going to be most exciting and most fulfilling, and that's not going to feel like you're trapped doing it. And so, yeah, I think that's like a big thing is that like you don't have to do anything. You can kind of reinvent yourself, and you don't have to do what other people expect of you.
Yeah, even the expectation that we hold on ourselves, I think, is the most
Hmm.
difficult part. Because Type A people like us, that resonated with me a lot. And Derek Sivers, I'm right with you on that. A lot of the stuff that in our conversation was, I think, probably one of my favorite conversations of last year. A lot of that really resonates, and we just need reminders of that sometimes. Almost need someone else to remind us for ourselves, because as much as we can just continue to do something, we get in the groove of it, and we feel like I
Yeah,
can't stop this. But we
yeah,
always have a choice. So that's always an
100%,
amazing reminder. Matt, thank you so much for
100%.
coming on the show. I appreciate you immensely.
James, thank you.